All right, guys, you're here with Josh Thomson with the Punk's Opinion. I'm going to give you my 2 cents on this whole deal with Kevin Lee calling out GSP. I know it's a little bit old news. I actually heard about it from, I want to tip my hat off to him as well as Chael Sonnen. I was just kind of going through some feeds and I saw that he was replying about this. Yeah, sure, it's brilliant. It's genius. But let's not deny the inevitable. The inevitable is that there will be a 165-pound title here shortly. I think the commissions are making a push for it. The promotions are fine, I think, with the 165, 175, 185-pound title that they already have. The problem that they're going to run into is when they get to the 185, they're not going to have a 95-pound title. There's not enough top talent already at those levels. And when they get to 215, there's definitely not enough talent in those levels of heavyweight. I mean, right now, the heavyweight division in the UFC is scarce. It is horrible. You know, you look at it realistically, they have DC fighting Stipe, and they've got Cain Velasquez basically there right now trying to get a fight. Asking, I think, for a fight, but no one seems to be, the UFC is just dragging their feet on getting things all organized. So I feel that this is brilliant. I think it's a great idea. I gotta basically tote a little bit on Chael's collar and sleeves and stuff, and just let him know, like, yeah, you're 100% right. Great marketing, great idea. Kevin Lee obviously has a hard time making the weight. At 155, 165 is a great weight class for a lot of these guys, but you're going to also run into some of these 70-pounders that can actually make that weight. So Kevin Lee doing his due diligence and saying, like, hey, GSP, why don't you just take me at that weight? Why don't we create a title at that weight and we can fight at that weight? It gives GSP also a chance, an opportunity to be a 3 world-class champion, a 3-title, 3-belt holder, and that would be amazing, man. Like, that's what his goal is. I think ultimately the only problem is that I almost feel he's jumped, like Chael said, he's jumping the gun. He's putting himself in a great position to be the first. But you're going to have a hard time selling that to the UFC, knowing that Khabib also has a hard time making weight, and he's also the current champion. So why not put him at 165 and let him fight GSP at 165 for the new title there, and then he'll be the two weight class champion also. So that's the only thing. And I'm only thinking in terms of, dude, I think Kevin Lee did a great job. He did a wonderful job of doing this. I think it's great. It's brought a lot of publicity, a lot of hype to him. It put his name in the forefront of the talks and conversation of a 165-pound title. And if there is one, that he's probably going to be first or second to basically fight for it against somebody else, probably somebody like Khabib, who also has a hard time making the weight. So I think that it's just I think it's inevitable, man. Like, eventually we're going to have weight classes every 10 pounds, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially at the 155, 165 pound division, because there's so much talent's being lost and forgotten that they can't get there. They're having a hard time getting at 155, but there's so many guys that are there, that guys that are that are having a hard time making the weight could be number one at 165 and still could make 155, but just are like, man, it's not worth the time. I'd rather go to 65, have an easier cut, feel like I have a better performance. You see it already with some of these guys. Donald Cerrone going up to 155 or 170. Dos Anjos going up to 170. I mean, they could make 65 probably very easily, and they'd probably prefer to fight at 65. The only thing in the conversation and the talk of that whole deal is what happens to the 170-pound title. It goes to 175. Does T Wood automatically become the champion at 175? And would T Wood want to go to 65? Can he make 65? I think he can. And I'd love to see Kevin Lee and T Wood fight. When you're talking, he's saying GSP, but I mean, why not? Why not? If T Wood can make 65, why don't you fight for the 165-pound title, which used to be the 70-pound title? Why don't you fight for that at 165 against T Wood? And then T Wood also just retains his title to become the 175-pound title holder, and he fights somebody there at that weight class as well. I think then you'll get an opportunity to see. This is an opportunity to see a lot more of the super fight talk, like guys that can have 2 and 3 and sometimes maybe 4 titles. It might be hard to get 4 titles, but I mean, like 2 and 3. All the things that I've heard from my sources at the UFC, they're basically telling me that GSP is scheduled to fight somebody. They're trying to get him scheduled to fight somebody at 170. to get his weight down, and the potential of him fighting at 155 so he can become the first 3 weight class title holder and belt and world champion. So that then no one else can touch or talk about the fact that he's not the GOAT anymore. So that's kind of my take on the whole deal. I think that Kevin Lee did a great job by calling this out, getting ahead of everything. Gotta say I agree with Chael on all this, but ultimately, when you actually sit down with the UFC and they start talking about a 165-pound title, that Kevin Lee is going to be like a conversation between like Kevin Lee and Khabib, or it's going to be Khabib and T Wood if T Wood can make the weight, or we've already seen that Darren Till can't make 170, so he won't be in the conversation. There's other guys. I mean, like the 165-pound weight class will end up catering to guys like Khabib, Kevin Lee. I could even see Tony Ferguson going there, even though from what I understand, he doesn't have a hard time making the weight. But I could even see him going there. Islam Makhachev would be a perfect prime example. He's a bigger 155 pounder as well, making 165, being a 155 and a 165 pound champion. But that also being said, Khabib could go to 165 and fight for the title there. If he wins the title there, Islam could end up being the champion at 155, and then you could end up having teammates that are, basically almost like brothers that end up having 2 champions, in two separate weight classes, given that they work together so well. So I think it's going to be. It's just a matter of time before we have a 65, a 75, and a 90. I don't know if we're going to have a 95, but a 65 and 75 pound weight class. Those are the only 2 weight classes I feel like you need to add, that you should add or need to add for that. You could create the 95, which would be perfect for someone like Luke Rockhold. He doesn't have a hard time making 85, but I just don't think he likes to. I think he feels better when he's at 95, 200. And 205 is obviously a little bit big because you're fighting guys like Gus and DC who cut from like 235, 240. So, I think it's inevitable, though, before we have a 65 and a 75-pound weight class. And 70 will go away, and then we have 85. So you're really just adding 1 weight class in there, in that middle section at 165. But that's my take. That's my opinion. Take with what you want with it, and you can hit me up on the YouTube channel. Put your comments down below and tell me how ridiculous I am and how much you hate me and how dumb I sound and all these other things. But because that's sometimes people do that. Almost all the time people do that. So, yeah, let me know your opinion, okay? I gave you my opinion. You let me know your opinion.